The first mandatory marriage counseling session as part of the divorce proceedings was scheduled for this week. Marvin knew it would be a waste of time because Cheryl was so adamant in her pursuit of female emancipation that she was not willing to make any concessions. Marvin spent the first session alone with counselor Diana Marco. After exchanging pleasantries, Diana asked, "Marvin, do you love your wife?" He replied, "Absolutely." She asked, "Do you think Cheryl loves you?" "She says she does," Marvin replied. "Then why are you getting divorced?" asked the counselor. He replied, "She left the house with all her things. She told me not to contact her for 6 months. She said she wanted to act as if she were single again and date other men. I think that's a sign that she doesn't want to be married to me. That's why I filed for divorce." "How do you feel, Marvin?" Looking Diane straight in the eye, he replied sharply, "What a stupid question. How do you think I feel? If you're trying to find out if I'm violent, I can tell you that I love her and would never hurt her physically. She's a good person. I think she's confused about who she is and who she wants to be." With growing irritation, he continued, "The problem is that she's running through a minefield, scattering rose petals around her, thinking this adventure will end happily. I hope you can reconcile us, but I'm moving on while she drowns in self-analysis." Diana asked, "Since you filed for divorce right after Valentine's Day, tell me about that day." He replied, "I bought 2 dozen red roses, treated her to her favorite, chocolates, and spent $200 on dinner and drinks at an expensive, hard-to-get-into restaurant. She gave me a card with a very sweet message, but it was their words, not hers. She signed it, 'Love, C.' We went to bed. She kissed me for a split second, then turned her back to me and said, 'Good night.' Now that I think about it, I realize that somewhere along the way, I lost her. I understand why she wants to leave, because she's not happy about our future, so I'll be more firm in my decision to divorce if that's what she wants." Diana thought, "Great. I should be trying to bring these people together, not tear them apart. My job just got a lot harder." Week 7, Cheryl came to Diana Marco's office for a reconciliation meeting. Diana asked her the same questions in the same order she had asked Marvin. She got the same answers she had gotten from Marvin, right down to the question about the reasons for the divorce. Cheryl replied, "I don't want a divorce. I told Marvin that I would come back to him in 6 months and we would resume our life together. I just want to feel free because I didn't have the opportunity to do what I wanted when I was younger. I'm not getting any younger or prettier. All my friends have interesting experiences and I don't. Isn't that unreasonable?" Ms. Marco asked the same question about Valentine's Day. "Nothing special, like everyone else, I guess. A few flowers and dinner." "Nothing special," Cheryl replied. Then Diane said, "Cheryl, Marvin said he would only divorce you if you dated other men. He loves you and wants to spend the rest of his life with you. Can you give up the idea of dating other men to save your marriage?" She replied, "I don't understand why he's being so demanding. I plan to go back to him in 6 months. He'll like the new, more experienced version of me. We can be the loving couple we've always been." Week 8. Marvin was a member of his college's alumni board and had prepared several fundraising projections to present at the next board meeting. He called and made an appointment with Tara Wilson, the executive director of the Alumni Association. He could have emailed the projections to Tara, but she was too beautiful to be on the other end of an email. He was greeted in her office by a radiant smile and a cheerful voice. She said, "I'm glad to see you again and that you came, because I wanted to discuss some issues with you." After a lively discussion about the forecasts, Tara said, "I don't want to pry, but I heard you're getting divorced from Cheryl. I understand your situation, as I was in the same situation 2 years ago, and it still hurts when certain things bring back memories. Are you still in touch?" "No," he replied. "We parted amicably, but she doesn't want to talk while she's doing some soul-searching and reflecting on herself and her life. Neither of us had any issues with infidelity or alcohol. We just grew apart." She asked, "I know this may be uncomfortable for you, but I have a problem that you might be able to help me with. On Saturday night, I have to go to a formal charity dinner. I bought 2 tickets thinking my boyfriend would go with me, but now he's left. My problem is Patrick O'Kelly. I find him offensive and rude, and he wants to go out with me. If he sees an empty seat next to me, he'll sit down and ruin my evening. I can't tell him to back off because he's a very generous college sponsor. You're the only person in this town with enough influence to keep him away from me. Could you help me with this problem by being my date? If you don't want to, I completely understand given your current situation. He said, I'd love to have dinner with you and keep O'Kelly's maid away from you. Just tell me your address and what time and I'll be there. Should I wear a tuxedo? Tara took his hand, not to shake it, but as a friend, and said, thank you very much. The canceled trip to Paris still haunted Cheryl. She thought, Marvin can be so romantic sometimes. I wish he would take my wishes into consideration more. She had started seeing a guy from Starbucks, and they had gone out to lunch a few times. It was obvious to Cheryl that without sex, the relationship would not progress. She decided it was too early to press the cheating button. On Saturday evening, Marvin pulled up to Tara's house in his freshly washed BMW and a well-fitting tuxedo. He rang the doorbell, and a young man opened the door and said politely, Come in, Miss Johnson. My mother will be right with you. The man replied with a smile. Thanks. Did your mom give you the script you're supposed to read to me? Smiling, the young man replied, Yes. As they laughed at each other, the most beautiful woman entered the room. It wasn't Tara, whom he had worked with on projects in college. She was wearing a cobalt blue dress with thin straps. He hesitated. Tara, I didn't recognize you. You look amazing. She replied, Yes, you know how to flatter a girl, don't you? With that, he said, Let's get in my car quickly. I'm afraid some movie star will show up and steal my beautiful companion. She turned to her son and said, Sean, behave yourself, no guests, and be in bed by 10 p.m., okay? Her son nodded, smiled at her, and said, You look good, Mom. All the townspeople gathered for the evening event. All heads turned when Tara and Marvin entered the hall and made their way to their reserved table at the front. Marvin knew that the men who approached their table weren't there for him. He had played golf with them that morning. Nothing new happened except that he was now accompanying the most beautiful woman in the building. Marvin also became the object of attention of several divorced women who had learned that the Johnsons were getting divorced. He worked in the lobby, studying his current and potential clients. All the while, he watched Tara's conversation, keeping his eyes on Handy O'Kelly. Suddenly, he saw Handy head toward Tara like a winged rocket. He quickly diverted his attention from the conversation and headed toward Tara. As soon as Handy started hugging Tara, Marvin squeezed between them. He put his arms around Handy's shoulders and said with a broad smile, Trying to steal my girl, Patrick? You're not the first or the last to try. Tara played her part, gently placing her hand on Marvin's shoulder and saying to Handy, Yes, I made a smart move when I convinced Marvin to come with me. He wouldn't have come here tonight if I hadn't promised to dance with him all night. He's a smooth talker, isn't he? Handy replied, Have a good evening, and left. Tara whispered in his ear, I'm very grateful to you. He replied, Being here with you is more than enough payment for me. Let's go sit down and have some dinner. Their table for 8 was the liveliest at the party, as Marvin was in his element, telling stories, joking, and laughing. It was the most enjoyable time he had had since Cheryl left their home and, possibly, their marriage. When the orchestra struck up the first song, he asked Tara to dance. She smiled, held out her hand, and rose from her chair. They danced to several fast songs, and when a slow melody began, they moved to the beat. Tara looked at him and said, I know and I understand. I was there 2 years ago, but my world has changed. And it's changed for the better. I had friends who helped me get through the hard times. Can I be one of your friends who helps you get back on your feet? He touched his head to hers and nodded in agreement as he couldn't speak. The rest of the evening was spent dancing, laughing, and having fun. When the party ended at 11 p.m., she asked Marvin if he wanted to take a ride with her in a convertible with the top down. She wanted the cool, fresh air to run through her hair and cool her down so she could hug Marvin and warm her body and heart. She asked him to walk her to the door, which he readily agreed to do. Marvin smiled and said, I haven't had this much fun in a long time. I can't figure out if it's because of you or because of the 200 friends who were around us. To find out, can I take you out to dinner next week? It's cheaper than paying for dinner for 200 people. She laughed and replied, I don't know anyone who could make me laugh with such a simple invitation to a date, so I'll take you up on that. Let's go on Friday night. She hugged him longer than he expected, then pulled away and kissed him quickly. Then she went into the house. Marvin put the top down and drove home. His heart was warm. Cheryl went with her friend Patty to one of the clubs to have some fun. Patty had been divorced for several years and knew all about parties. She knew that Cheryl was pretty and fresh enough to attract a few guys to their table that evening. And she was right. As soon as they walked in, several guys noticed them, came over, and asked Patty who her friend was. After introducing themselves, Tim, Dan, and Harvey bought the girls drinks and promised that the dancing would start soon. Tim and Cheryl took to the dance floor for a few fast songs. When a slow song came on, Cheryl hesitated about whether to initiate physical contact. Tim knew what to do. It had been many years since another man had come so close to her. Cheryl reminded herself that this was exactly the kind of interaction she had been looking for. Interaction with unfamiliar men with unknown intentions. By the end of the evening, she had the names and phone numbers of several men who wanted to go out with her. This made her female ego purr. I'm still attractive to men, I can choose who I want to be with. Late in the evening, she and Patty went home without the men. Week 9. On Wednesday, several of Cheryl's co-workers brought her the morning edition of the college's internal newspaper. The main story was about Tara Wilson, who had played an important role in the success of a charity event for children on Saturday night. The article included several photos of Tara and her unnamed companion. Cheryl timidly wondered if it was her husband, with whom she was currently separated, standing next to the extremely attractive Tara Wilson, dancing with her. Stunned, Cheryl stared at the photo of her husband while the other women waited for her response. She muttered, "Yes, it's him." On Thursday, Cheryl stopped by Betty's travel agency and asked for a favor. "I really need to talk to Marvin. Could you call him and ask him to talk to me? I'm not lonely. I'm not sad. It's just that my children won't talk to me. Maybe he can convince them to get in touch with me." Betty replied, "I won't interfere in your relationship. I'll call Marvin and ask if he'd be willing to talk to you. If he agrees, I'll put you on the phone and go into the next room. If not, I'll thank him and hang up. Any questions?" Cheryl replied, "No, thank you for doing that for me." Betty called Marvin and asked if he wanted to talk to Cheryl, and he replied, "Not really, but maybe I should." Put her on the phone, "And I'm sorry you had to get involved, Betty." Taking the phone, Cheryl said, "Good morning, Marvin. I hope you're doing well." He replied, "Yes, what do you need, Cheryl?" She asked, "Can we meet and talk? I really need to talk to you. It's hard for me to talk on the phone with Betty. Please, can we meet for a few minutes?" He replied, "Then we'll break one of your unbreakable rules for your convenience. I can't contact you, but you can contact me. All because you changed the rules I thought we were supposed to live by, right?" She replied, "Please, Marvin." Reluctantly, he said, "All right, let's have lunch today. Somewhere we don't usually go so people won't think we're meeting." She replied, "I can make you lunch at my place." "No way. I don't want to go into your sanctuary. Alberto's restaurant is not far from the highway. I'll be there at noon. Anything else?" "Thank you very much, Marvin," she said when he hung up. When they pulled up to Alberto's restaurant, Marvin saw Cheryl at a corner table. When he approached the table, she stood up, opened her arms, and hugged him. It was awkward. He just stood there with his arms down, and she hugged him. She started the conversation with what she thought was a light topic. "You look very well. Cooking must be helping you." He replied dryly, "It's not my cooking. It seems like every other night some woman brings me food and asks how I'm doing. One night they lined up 3 deep to bring me homemade food. The local women are very good at feeding and taking care of me." This angered Cheryl, and she asked, "Was that slut Mary DeFalco one of them? She always looked at you with admiration when she was around us." Smiling, he replied, "Yes, she was one of the first to come in, and I have to say she makes the best lasagna I've ever tasted. Invite her over sometime." She clenched her teeth and moved on to the next topic. "Marvin, I know I've disappointed the kids, and they don't understand what I'm trying to do, but I miss talking to them. None of them have spoken to me in weeks. Did you tell them not to talk to me?" "When they were here, I told them that you're still their mother and they should treat you with respect," he replied. She quickly asked, "They came to you instead of me. That breaks my heart." He replied sharply, "Yes, it seems to happen a lot." Then he looked at her and froze. Cheryl stared at the table. Then he said, "I'll call them this week and ask them to call you. I won't force them to call. I'll ask them to call you. By the way, about the calls, you may be offended by some of the words they use, so be prepared." Now Cheryl had received 3 negative answers she didn't want to hear, so she moved on to the next topic. "I saw your picture in the newspaper with Tara Wilson. Are you two dating?" He replied, She didn't have a date for a charity dinner, so she asked me to accompany her. I haven't had that much fun in a long time. She's a very beautiful woman. She asked you out? She asked. Yes, it's hard to believe that a beautiful, talented, intelligent girl asked me out on a date. Right? He said, looking her straight in the eye. Even though he was looking her straight in the eye, she felt a loud gulp escape her throat. Marvin, I didn't plan on spending much and I don't have much money. I know you've always made sure I pay my bills, I have a good credit history, and I want to keep it that way. But with utilities, new health insurance, a mortgage on my apartment, moving expenses and storage, I'm in a tight spot. Can you lend me $2,000? I'll pay you back, I promise. He didn't say anything. He just looked at her with disappointment and irritation. He slowly took out his checkbook, wrote her a check, and handed it across the table. She said, "Thank you so much. I feel bad asking you for this. I was planning on becoming a more independent woman, but that hasn't happened yet." "Are we done?" he asked. "One more question," Cheryl replied. "Can you tell me about the trip to France that Betty and Cindy told me about?" Marvin sighed again. "Well, there's nothing to tell. I planned that trip for us so you could go to France. I knew it was always your dream. The night you told me you were leaving me, I had the documents with me. I canceled the trip because it seemed like you were no longer in my life." Holding back tears, Cheryl said, "That's the most selfless and wonderful thing a man has ever done for me. You really are a wonderful and thoughtful husband, and I love you for it. Please remember that I'm not leaving you. When we're together again, I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you. Are we done?" he asked. When Cheryl nodded, Marvin stood up, paid the bill, and left. Later that day, Marvin called Tara and asked if she would go on a date with him on Friday night. Tara replied, "Yes, I put it on my calendar and I'm looking forward to it. What are you planning for the evening?" He replied, "Since you have college baseball games on Friday night and the forecast is for a beautiful spring evening, I thought it would be nice to go to the game, have dinner in the park, and watch the games. What do you think?" She replied, "Great, that's a wonderful idea. Would you like me to reserve 2 seats for us in the faculty box?" He replied, "No, because then it would be like work for you. I'll pick you up at 4 o'clock, and we'll get our seats when we get there." "Great. See you then." Marvin got good seats in the third base box. The first thing they did was buy soda and popcorn. As they started eating the popcorn, Marvin asked, "I took a chance asking you about the baseball game tonight. I didn't know if you liked outdoor activities or sports." Tara replied, "I love all kinds of sports. I played softball in high school and a little in college. Today is the perfect opportunity. I've been here for 2 years and have never been to a game. Thanks for thinking of me." He asked, "Does your son play sports too?" "He plays sports, but he's thinking about golf now, but because of my work, it's difficult with logistics and transportation." Marvin thought for a few seconds and said, "Our country club has a program for young golfers this summer, and it's just great. 5 hours on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. The first hour is golf lessons, the second is playing 3-4 holes, and at noon the kids get hot dogs and hamburgers. After lunch, they go to the pool until their parents pick them up." "My goodness, that would be perfect for him." "But how much does it cost?" Tara asked. He replied, "The only expense is the food. The club plans to make it so much fun for the kids that they'll convince their parents to join the country club. You don't have to become a member right now. I'll sponsor you until you decide if you want to join. If you're interested, I'll give you the information." Tara beamed and said, "That would be great. Thank you for thinking of him and me." The rest of the day and evening were spent watching 2 exciting baseball games and eating hot dogs and popcorn. They laughed and talked like 2 school children who had just gotten to know each other. Gradually, Marvin realized that he had brought a blanket with him. Not so much for warmth as for an excuse to snuggle up to Tara. She didn't seem to mind. The evening ended with hugs, a quick kiss, and a promise to meet again next week. Week 10. On Sunday, the golf course at the country club was closed for the first spring golf tournament. The game was to be played in a scramble format where each player takes 1 shot and the team chooses the best of 4. A professional golfer forms teams using handicaps to determine players A, B, C, and D. Marvin was player B and was very surprised to see Greta Gustafson as player A. Greta has been playing on the LPGA Tour for about 10 years. Over those 10 years, she was one of the most photographed players on the tour. not for her wins, but for her looks. She was 5'5", had long blonde hair, and an hourglass figure that she could show off in shorts and tight-fitting golf shirts. She was originally from Sweden and had a soft, melodious voice. With her winnings and sponsorship money, she bought and expanded the largest insurance agency in town. After the presentation, the four players got into their golf carts and headed for the first hole. Marvin was glad that Greta was riding with him. He said to her, "We don't know each other, but I've seen you here many times." Greta replied, "I know who you are because you gave the president's speech at the annual meetings. Nice to meet you." Player D teed off first, followed by players C, B, and finally A. When Greta bent over and stuck her club in the ground, it became clear why she was so popular at tournaments. It was the most beautiful butt Marvin had ever seen. Turning her torso, she swung her long arms sharply, delivering a powerful blow. The ball whizzed 250 yards down the center of the fairway. Greta smiled and put her club back in her bag. As she got into the cart, Marvin said in Swedish, "Det var mycket bra." That was very good. Hearing these words, Greta looked up in alarm. Greta replied, "Du talar svenska? Do you speak Swedish?" He smiled and replied, "Ja, yes, Swedish," and then said in English, "It's all thanks to my Swedish. Both of my parents' families were Swedish immigrants in 1868, hence the surname Johnson." Smiling beautifully, she said, "I'm looking forward to our game tonight. You're the first person in this town who knows anything about Sweden." The remaining 17 holes were filled with laughter, jokes, and discussions of Swedish customs. Their laughter could be heard as they sang Swedish children's songs. Marvin knew the words his grandmother had taught him, but he didn't know their meaning, which made them even funnier. Thanks to Greta's long drives and Marvin's putts, the four of them won the first prize of $100 per person in the form of shirts, pants, and golf equipment. Greta turned to Marvin and said, "Playing golf with you is more fun than winning. Let's play again." Smiling, he agreed and said, "Sure. Come here on Wednesday at 1 o'clock. I'll treat you to lunch. It'll be cheaper than paying you $1 for every shot we played." Weeks 11 and 12, Cheryl initially informed her friends from the women's club that she would not be attending their 25th anniversary reunion. After threats of kidnapping and intervention from her friends, she reluctantly agreed to join them. They knew about her problems with Marvin and her inability to accept herself as a modern woman. They wanted to be there to support their friend during a difficult time and help her regain her femininity. Cheryl was happy about the 3-hour drive to Dallas because it gave her time to relax from the stresses of work and life in general. She turned her thoughts to the young women she had studied with in college and how their lives had turned out. It would be interesting to catch up with these old friends. They rented a corporate vacation home with 6 bedrooms, a kitchen, and a central living room with couches and armchairs instead of tables. The 6 bedrooms were separated so that each had its own bathroom. Outside, there was a patio and a hot tub overlooking a golf course. Friday was planned as a day of travel and an evening get-together. The plan was to order sushi for dinner and then have a pajama party at the vacation home. Cheryl took the day off, so she was there by 5 o'clock p.m. From the laughter and squeals, she could tell that most of the ladies had already gathered. When she walked through the door, there was a wild cheer that she had finally arrived. Many of the girls had already started drinking, as evidenced by the large number of bottles of alcohol on the table. The Uber ride to and from the sushi restaurant was noisy and chaotic, with all the women laughing. Everyone was told to put on their pajamas and gather in the center. After a round of margaritas made in the kitchen blender, each woman had to talk about her career, children, marriage, and lovers. There were funny stories, sad stories, and stories with no end. Cheryl was one of 3 who didn't have a conclusion yet. Everyone saw the possibility that wonderful or terrible things could happen to these 3 women. More than half of the women had been divorced at least once. Most of those surveyed told Cheryl that she was on the right track. She should take control of her marriage and tell her husband how things were going to be. He should gladly agree or just accept it. It was his choice, but it was better for him to make his wife happy and stop whining. The girls applauded Cheryl for taking charge and telling her ungrateful husband that she was leaving for 6 months, and for being a strong, modern woman. They liked the no-contact rule and the fact that she was living as an unmarried woman, free from the constraints of marriage. They gasped when she told them that Marvin had filed for divorce and was using this opportunity to change his life for another woman. She told them about his date with the young, beautiful Tara Wilson and how he traded in his Honda for a BMW convertible as a sign of his serious intentions. Even the most rebellious girls softened their talk about how to make their husbands sort things out. Most of the women said that after their divorces, their ex-husbands had married younger women, while they had married older men. Everyone agreed that she should proceed with caution and not force him to make a choice she didn't want him to make. After a late night, the group didn't start shopping until 11 a.m. The plan was to have lunch and shop until 4 p.m., then return to the hotel and relax until the evening. They made a reservation at an Italian restaurant and planned to go clubbing afterwards. Each woman was told to wear her best men's dress and put $20 in the margarita blender, and whoever caught the best man would win $240. Dinner was especially good, but the real entertainment was the manhunt contest. When they arrived at the best club, it turned out that there wasn't enough room for 12 people, so they had to settle for 2 tables for 6. This also made the ladies more accessible to the men, who invited them to dance. Cheryl enjoyed dancing with 5 different men. Each of them was charming, pleasant, and funny. This was exactly what she had dreamed of when she left Marvin's house. The 6th man who approached her was completely different. One look at Cheryl made her squirm in her chair, and she got up to dance with him without even waiting for him to ask her. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and very refined. He spoke to her quietly and directly, paying no attention to anything going on around them. After a few fast and slow songs, he asked if she was tired and wanted to go back. She replied, "I'll go back to the table if you come with me. Otherwise, I'll stay here and hold you." He said, "That's the most beautiful music I've heard all evening. Your table is quite noisy. Would you like to join me? This is my son and some of his college friends. I'm sure we'll have time to talk since all the guys are busy courting the young ladies tonight." She replied with a laugh, "Sounds tempting." Cheryl learned that Ted was an aviation broker who had come to Dallas to visit his son, who was working there as a summer intern. His office was in Seattle, but he traveled all over the world selling new and used planes. Suddenly, everything fell into place. If she wanted experience with a real macho man, Ted was the man for her. It was hard to find a man in her town who didn't know Marvin. Here was a man from Seattle, in Dallas with a son named Matt, who had no connections and didn't know Marvin. She wasn't even going to tell Ted her real name so he couldn't find her. It was perfect. She could have fun with him, and Marvin would never know. Her husband had a saying about fouls in basketball. Every cloud has a silver lining. Since he didn't know she was having fun with Ted, there was no harm done, and therefore no foul. Her table became the center of the party, where young men and women gathered to sit, drink, laugh, and have fun. Now that Cheryl had decided how to have fun without her husband finding out, she relaxed and had a great time. He turned to his son and said, "Take a picture of this. I want to remember this moment forever." Ted said, "I think we need to get out of here before we get arrested. But first, I have 2 questions for you. First, what's your name?" "CJ," she replied. Second question, "Are you married?" She replied, "Not anymore, my husband divorced me." Then she asked, "Where are you staying?" He replied, "At the Embassy Suites, about a mile from here. I'll ask my son to find another room for the night because mine is going to be very busy." With that, Cheryl grabbed Ted by the arm and dragged him over to her friend's table. She announced, "Ted and I are leaving. See you tomorrow morning when I pick up the money for catching people." She then made Ted show his driver's license to his friends so that if Ted turned out to be a serial killer, the police would know who he was. All of Cheryl's fears about Marvin's infidelity vanished when she hugged Ted and headed for his hotel. As soon as the door closed, she pressed herself against Ted, and they went to the bedroom. She led him by the back to a soft chair by the bed, knelt down, and after their morning entertainment, Ted drove Cheryl to her friends. Her jealous friends wanted to know all the details. After lunch, all the ladies began to leave for their husbands, lovers, or empty apartments. They all decided that they would socialize more with this group. They especially wanted to hear about Cheryl's further adventures. Some envied her position, others were grateful that they were not in her place. Week 13. On Sunday afternoon, Marvin picked up Tara and Sean and took them to his country club. After a late breakfast, he showed Sean and Tara the shop, the golf course, the driving range, and the snack bar. Marvin had an old set of clubs that his son had played with when he was the same age, so Sean kept them in the shop when he came to play. Most importantly, he gave Sean his club number so he could order soda and fries for himself and his new friends by the pool. The following Tuesday was the first Tuesday of the summer program for young golfers. Sean smiled the entire time. He had been afraid of a boring summer, but golf lessons, playing golf, and swimming 3 times a week made him a happy boy. It also made Tara a happy mother and a happy companion to Marvin. In the evening, she made dinner for the three of them. After Sean went to bed, she snuggled up to Marvin and said, "Thank you for bringing Sean to this golf club. He's very happy. I'm sure you were a wonderful father to your children." He replied regretfully, "You'd better ask someone else about that. After what's happened to me in the last 3 months, I don't know if I did the right thing. My world has been turned upside down and my head is spinning." Tara hugged him and said, "I'm here for you. I've been through this before. After the fog clears, things will become clearer. I guarantee it. Just keep doing what you're doing. You'll feel better, no matter what happens." Then they spent some time in silence, hugging and talking. On June 15th, Marvin and Cheryl realized what day it was. It was their 25th anniversary. They both thought about sending each other a card, but decided not to. They both marked 13 weeks from Friday on their calendars. That would be the end of Cheryl's 6-month journey to find strength. The day of decision would come. Would they reunite as husband and wife? Or would they sign the final divorce papers? Cheryl was still reeling from her trip to Dallas. Her friends supported her in what she had done and how she had done it. The night she spent with Ted had been amazing. However, she knew she had to keep all her connections in her hometown a secret. Otherwise, her absent husband might demand a divorce. And she didn't want that at all right now. In fact, she didn't want to divorce him. She just wanted things to be different. She wanted the freedom to do what she wanted, but she wanted him to be her home, where she could run to when she wanted to. It was the perfect arrangement. Sure, Marvin would be a cuckold, but he just wouldn't know about it. She hated deceiving her husband of 25 years, but he just needed to stop making such a big deal out of it. On Wednesday, Marvin played golf with Greta. Thanks to lessons from the club's professional coach and Greta's helpful advice, he had managed to lower his average score by 6 strokes. He really enjoyed her company, and the beautiful day in the fresh air made it special. Although the golf was serious, the conversation between them was relaxed, as they had become very close. When they finished playing, he asked her if she would like to play with him on Friday evening at the club for couples. He said, "It's mostly married couples, but you can find some singles too. It's only 9 holes, and then there's dinner and prizes." She replied, "I'd love to." On Friday evening, a group of women who had known each other for a long time gathered at a country club for drinks and dinner. Cheryl had been a member of this group for many years, but after her divorce from Marvin, she was no longer allowed to attend the club. Her friend Betty asked if she could join them. At first she didn't want to, but then she decided that a modern woman wouldn't cowardly hide in the same building as her divorced husband. After all, they weren't sworn enemies, just two people who had grown apart for a short time. Usually on Fridays, they would gather for a girls' night out on the patio, above the 9th green. They had chosen this spot years ago because of the loud and boisterous conversations that this group was known for. It was a beautiful evening, and the cosmopolitans were flowing. Cheryl was happy to be back with her friends and looked around, remembering the times she had spent here with Marvin. And then she saw him, her husband. He was walking alongside a moving golf cart toward his ball. He looked very good, fit, with an athletic gait. Judging by the position of the ball, they had already taken 2 shots on the par 5 hole. He swung his club, the ball flew straight to the flag and rolled into the hole. "Eagle? He got an eagle!" Cheryl heard a woman shout. She was overjoyed for her husband and jumped up to congratulate him, but stopped when she felt a lump in her stomach. A tall, blonde woman jumped out of the cart and ran up to Marvin. He turned to her. She hugged him and kissed him quickly. They didn't care who was watching them. They didn't hear the cheers and jeers of those around them. The 2 golfers hugged each other and headed for their cart. The ladies at the table gasped when they realized they had seen Cheryl. Cheryl grabbed her purse and ran to the car. There she burst into tears. Another beautiful woman followed Marvin. He had to wait until she decided when to go home. It had to be her decision, not his. He would have liked to switch places with her, but she was upset that someone wanted to switch her. Week 14. Diane Marcos scheduled a joint meeting between Cheryl and Marvin with a mediator. They hadn't seen or spoken to each other since their dinner 5 weeks earlier. They arrived at Diane's office at the same time. When he turned off his BMW, Cheryl complimented him on his nice car and asked, Could you give me a ride after our session? Getting out of the car, he replied, I'm sorry, but I have a golf game today. Besides, we're not allowed to talk to each other. She replied, I'm looking forward to our session today. I hope we can work out our differences and get back together. He smiled and said, Yes, me too. But with you moving, any reunion will be difficult. Diane greeted them warmly in her office. I'm so glad you're talking to each other. This is a good start to reconciliation. After our last meeting, I told you that this would be a joint meeting. Each of you will be able to talk openly with each other and find out what you have in common. From our first meeting, I could tell that you both care about each other and love each other. You both want to stay married. The only obstacle is that Cheryl wants to have relationships with other men besides Marvin. This is a serious problem for him, and he has vowed that he will divorce Cheryl if she cheats on him. Do we agree that this is our obstacle? Both answered, yes. Diane asked Cheryl if she wanted to speak first. Cheryl replied, yes, I want to start. Marvin, I really love and respect you very much. I want us to be together forever, but I feel incomplete and deprived of life experience. From what I've read, I understand that sexual relationships are different from intimacy. You can have a relationship with someone without caring about them or even loving them. It's just a physical act like shaking hands or hugging. She continued, intimacy is different. If you have an intimate relationship with someone, you are deeply emotionally attached to that person. It's a lifelong bond. We have an intimate relationship. I do this with you because I care about you and love you. Another way to describe your fear of being a cuckold is that you've had the flu many times. It's a physical phenomenon. A phenomenon you didn't like, but you dealt with it. You moved on, you didn't dwell on it, and you didn't spend the rest of your life angry about it. It was unpleasant, but you dealt with it. She continued, it's the same as if I had a short relationship with someone else. I feel like I need that contact to become more of a woman to you, not just a wife. I hope you understand what I'm getting at. Taking a deep breath, Marvin said, I found it interesting that you said, you respect me very much as a husband and a man. But at the same time, you say you don't respect me as a man because you want to do this with other men. I find that humiliating, and I find it terribly offensive. Almost indignantly, he said, your words, you'll get over it, show that you don't understand how men think. Since the beginning of time, it has been in men's DNA that they don't want other men to have fun with their women. It has to do with the preservation of the species and masculinity. You can go back thousands of years and see how men thought. He continued, there are two words that start with the letter C that are offensive to both men and women. Cheryl, I want you to stay my wife, but I'm not going to participate in your adventures. He continued, I won't tolerate it. But your thoughts will be far away, just like mine. Cheryl couldn't respond except to say, no, Marvin, it won't be like that. I promise it won't be like that. Her weak response didn't move him. Diane ended the session and asked both of them to remain open and think about possible compromises. Week 15. Summer was in full swing, and Marvin played golf with Greta every Wednesday afternoon. Usually it was just the two of them, but sometimes clients would join them. Greta for insurance matters, Marvin for investment matters. After the game, Marvin would invite Greta over for steak and salad, which she gladly accepted. Sitting in the backyard after dinner, Marvin said, I need to tell you what's going on and how I feel about our marriage. Last week we had a mandatory reconciliation meeting, but we haven't gotten any closer to an agreement since I filed for divorce. You already know the terms I set at the time. Then he said, I feel that we are very close, so I can tell you that I like you very much and want to keep our relationship going. However, I promise not to have sex with anyone until my marriage is dissolved. It would be hypocritical of me to divorce Cheryl because of your infidelity while having fun with you. I don't know if you want this with me or not, but I want you to know that this is why I didn't push for our relationship to move to the next level. I hope I wasn't too presumptuous in thinking you were interested in me at all. His words made Greta laugh. You're not presumptuous at all. I really enjoy spending time with you. Marvin, I feel like you're my best friend in this town, and I'm perfectly happy with the way our relationship is going. It's important for you to get through the summer and figure things out with Cheryl before you make any decisions. The next day, Marvin asked Tara if she wanted to go with him to an outdoor concert on Saturday night, and she agreed. One weekend, Greta was in Atlanta with her friends from the LPGA. They drove around town in Marvin's convertible because it was a beautiful summer evening and it was a lot of fun. I have to tell you, Marvin, that this summer you've made my son's life and mine just wonderful. Sean loves the junior golf program. He's made some great friends, and I've made a great friend in you. You guys have brought us so much joy this summer. I hope summer never ends. He replied, I'm afraid it's going to end with a big bang. Cheryl's Women's Empowerment Project ends on the last day of August, and we need to decide what to do next. Earlier this week, we had a meeting with a psychologist to try to work things out. I expressed my opinion, she expressed hers. Neither of us budged. This brings me to a topic I don't want to touch on. We were close this summer, and I like it when the three of us are together. He continues, this is a time when most couples either grow closer or drift apart. I'm consciously not doing that with anyone during Cheryl's 6-month affair. How can I divorce her for cheating when I'm sleeping with someone else? That's why I've abstained from sex for the last 15 weeks. Laughing, Tara said, I'm so proud of you. I was afraid you'd go crazy with revenge and it would ruin your life. I understand you because, as you know, I've been through it. I suspected you would do this. It will be interesting to see what happens in your life this fall. She asked, since we're on the subject, I want to ask if this no-sex rule extends to Greta. I don't want to be nosy or jealous, but I know you spend a lot of time with her, and I don't want her to be your plan B. My ex-husband had a female friend, and I was very hurt when he chose her over me. I hope you understand where I'm coming from. He took her hand and said, you don't have to worry that I'll be waiting for you. Greta and I are good friends and enjoy spending time together. About 90% of the time we spend together, we talk about golf or business. She welcomes the no-sex rule because she doesn't want to get into a relationship with someone without knowing where it's going. Please don't worry. You're special to me, and I don't want to hurt you. Week 16. Week 17. Summer was coming to an end. Marvin played golf with Greta every Wednesday and spent the evening with her. Marvin spent most of his time with Tara and her son Sean, which suited them both. Week 18. Greta did not participate in the country club tournament on July 4th because she went to Atlanta to play golf and see her friends. Marvin invited Tara and Sean to watch the fireworks on the golf course. Sean hung out with his golfing buddies, and they sat in lawn chairs, drank drinks, and enjoyed the evening. Tara noticed that he was looking off into the distance toward his house. She touched his arm and smiled when he turned toward her. She nodded, and he nodded back. No one had invited Cheryl out for the evening, so she drove to the country club and parked a block away from the house to watch the fireworks. Cars parked on both sides of the street prevented her from turning around and leaving. She didn't want to drive further down the street because she used to live there. She saw club members walking down the street to their cars and homes. She also saw Marvin and Tara walking arm in arm with some guy toward her former home. Not wanting to look like a stalker, she sat in her car and sniffed the air until the Johnsons went inside. Week 19. Cheryl went to the club twice a week. She danced, laughed, drank cosmopolitan cocktails, and had a great time. She maintained her dignity and couldn't be accused of fooling around with any of her new friends. She enjoyed teasing men and making them chase her. There was always the possibility that Marvin was being followed by a detective who could document his infidelity. She still didn't know how he found out about Roberto. Fortunately, they were just flirting with each other. She called Ted and asked him to call her when he was within reach of her house. Ted said he would be in Dallas next weekend. Cheryl asked to meet him halfway, and he readily agreed. Cheryl still suspected that Marvin knew Roberto. She rented a car in case he had planted a tracking device in her car. She didn't take her favorite purse with her because it could have had a tracking device or a recording device sewn into it. She made the phone call to Ted not from her cell phone, but from a phone she bought at Walmart. She had outsmarted Marvin again. They agreed to meet at a bar near the hotel and have a couple of drinks before heading to the room. Ted drank a glass of Macallan whiskey to celebrate his friend's arrival. After 2 drinks, they were ready to go to the hotel. She headed for the hallway, and a smiling Ted followed her. Week 20. Robbie was working as a summer intern at a large factory in Nashville. The internship was supposed to end in 4 weeks, and the experience was very useful. The contacts he made would be very helpful in finding a permanent job after graduation. Robbie became friends with another intern named Matt. At the beginning of the summer, Matt and Robbie became roommates for the company's orientation week. After his internship, Matt was sent to Dallas. That week, Matt was in Nashville for a meeting with company representatives and stayed with Robbie again. Matt's father was also in town and wanted to meet the young men and invite them to dinner. When Matt's father arrived, he introduced Robbie to Ted. They greeted each other and went to a steakhouse. After dinner, they had to decide where to spend the evening. Robbie and Matt wanted to go to a club to drink and dance. Although Ted knew he would have to pay for everything, he agreed to join them. After spending an hour at a club near the airport, Matt remarked to his father, "This club is like a graveyard compared to the one we went to in Dallas." Ted replied, "That was a wild night." "What happened?" Robbie asked. Matt laughed and replied, "Dad, a couple of months ago he was almost attacked at our table. A woman about Dad's age really wanted him. She took him to a hotel. Right, Dad?" "Matt, I think you need to show her more respect. She was a very nice woman. I really enjoyed talking to her. She wasn't promiscuous or easy. She just went out with her friends to celebrate her 25th college reunion. She was going through a divorce and just wanted some male attention." Too many coincidences, and Robbie began to piece together the puzzle pieces spinning in his head. "What was her name?" he asked. Ted replied with a puzzled expression. "CJY." Robbie thought, "The initials are Cheryl Johnson. My mom was in Dallas for a 25-year class reunion. She and my dad are probably going to get divorced for good in a month. Can you describe this woman to me?" Matt took out his cell phone and dialed the number on the photo of Cheryl and Ted kissing. He didn't want Robbie to see the other photos. He handed the cell phone to Robbie. 2 seconds later, Robbie recognized his mother kissing the man sitting across from him. Out of habit, he swiped to the next photo just as Matt reached for the phone. Matt said, "I don't think that's a good idea, Robbie." Robbie looked at him and said, "This isn't for me. Dad needs to know what happened because they're either getting back together or getting divorced for good. He needs to know." Matt took his hand away, and Robbie saw his mother's bare butt rubbing against Ted's knee at the table in the club. Ted immediately said, "Robbie, she told me she was divorced. I don't do that with married women. I was hurt twice when other men entertained my wife at the time. I wouldn't do that to another man." Robbie nodded approvingly, turned to Matt and asked him to forward the photos to him. Robbie turned to Ted and said, "I have to go. Thanks for dinner and drinks. Goodbye." Week 21. Greta called Marvin and asked him to cook her a steak at his place after golf on Wednesday afternoon. He gladly agreed. After a great steak, red wine, and dessert, Greta asked him to sit next to her on the couch. He thought it was the beginning of a breakup. Maybe she had changed her mind after their conversation last week. Greta began, "You know how much I enjoy your company. We've become very close, and I want to ask you something that I hope won't damage our relationship." Marvin felt a lump in his throat. The ghost of Cheryl was alive. "After spending 5 months with you, I've come to the conclusion that you're one of the most honest and intelligent people I've ever known. Your business practices are effective, profitable, and you make every deal beneficial for both the client and your company. I admire what you've built. I also know that one day you'll want to slow down and work less. Your children won't want to come back and run your company, and I wouldn't want a viable local company to be sold to a chain. For that reason, Marvin, I would like you to consider merging our companies. Our companies are very compatible and would complement each other. Compared to similar companies, my company has maximum market coverage, just like yours. If we merge, I will gain access to a new client list and you will gain access to my clients. By the time you are ready to retire, I will be able to run the company and take your place as president. I can then buy out your share, and you can retire or work part-time. I know you have an important personal decision to make in a month, but I feel I need to bring this up now before you make another decision that will affect your company. You don't have to decide now, just think about it. We spend a lot of time together, so we can discuss it gradually until we come to a decision. I was so afraid you were going to say you didn't want to talk to me anymore. Instead of the pain I expected, I got a wonderful offer. I really like your idea. I was hoping Robbie would come back and join the company, but after everything he went through this summer, he's firm in his decision to get his engineering degree. I can see how we could merge the companies. When we took on mutual clients this summer, I thought it was very beneficial. I'm really glad you brought this up because I was very impressed with your business acumen and dedication. I would like to pass the family business on to you one day." Week 22. After much anguish, Robbie called Cindy to tell her about their mother's infidelity. He emailed her a photo of Cheryl kissing Ted for her to see. Cindy replied, "I don't think a kiss like that can be called cheating, but you have Ted's admission that there was physical contact between them." Robbie then emailed her a photo of their mother with Ted. I didn't want to send you this disgusting photo, but between what Ted told me and this photo, there's no doubt what she was doing with him. Robbie had time to calm down after his initial outrage at his mother's behavior. The photo caught Cindy off guard and she flew into a rage, calling her mother the dirtiest names she could think of. In tears, she said, "Can you imagine how this will affect Dad? He devoted his whole life to that selfish slut and this is how she repaid him. It's awful. How are we going to tell Dad?" "I know," Robbie exclaimed. "You're the older one. Do you want to tell him? Or should I do it since I already talked to Ted?" "Let's do it together," she replied. "We have to do this in person, not over the phone. He's going to need us. What's left of our family has to stick together." Week 23. Maven was surprised when Cindy called and asked if she and Robbie could come visit him the following weekend. Marvin was happy that they were coming. He missed them, especially since Robbie had left home for the first time that summer. Their happiness was shattered when they told him and showed him what Cheryl had been doing in Dallas while traveling with her friends to celebrate her 25th birthday. Marvin spoke in a steady voice, his face pale. He said quietly, "I knew this would happen, and I was afraid of the day when I would find out for sure. She was so nervous about this event that I knew it would happen. But deep down, I hoped it wouldn't. I didn't ask the detective to investigate her relationship because I didn't want to know the truth, but deep down, I needed to know. I don't want you two to see this photo. She was a good mother to you and a good wife to me. It's a shame she went off the rails." This is one example of how the saying, "distance makes the heart grow fonder," isn't always true. The longer I live without her, the less I want her back. Having decided to divorce, Marvin wanted to spend the rest of the weekend with his children. They deliberately avoided contacting their mother because they didn't want to see her. Their laughter was forced, but they were happy to see their father. They were proud that he wasn't crying or complaining, but Marvin had had more than 6 months to prepare for this, weeks 24 and 25. Cheryl was preparing to move in with Marvin. She packed clothes she didn't plan on wearing anytime soon, such as a light summer dress. She was sure Marvin didn't have a valid reason to divorce her because of her infidelity. She was ready to leave her 6-month lifestyle experiment behind. She wanted to return to Marvin's big, beautiful house, not her small, cramped apartment. She missed her status as Mrs. Marvin Johnson in town. She missed the fun of going to formal dinners in a new dress and sitting at the head table. She missed the fun Independence Day parties at the country club. Her friends had drifted away, and she was no longer invited to coffee or lunch at the club as often. Going to the club wasn't as exciting as she had thought it would be. Sure, she danced and kissed a few potential suitors, but there were no sparks. All these guys wanted to entertain her, and not after a few dinners, but right now, right here in the bathroom, in the parking lot, anywhere. Yes, that was what she wanted, but the more she looked at the other divorced women being hit on at the club, the less she wanted to be like them. To her, Ted was different, exactly what she imagined her lover to be. Maybe once every 3 or 4 months she could go away for the weekend with Ted. Marvin wouldn't find out. Although she was confident about her chances of getting back together with her husband, she found it strange that none of her children had called her in several weeks. She called them, but the calls stopped. The same thing happened when she tried to call Ted. The call just cut off. Her text messages and emails went unanswered. The only people who called her were men from the nightclub who wanted only one thing. She thought maybe she needed a new cell phone. Week 26. At Marvin's request, his lawyer contacted Cheryl's lawyer and asked the parties to meet at his office at 1:00 p.m. to make a final decision about the divorce. He demanded 2 things: an up-to-date STD report and that Marvin and Cheryl sign the divorce papers at the beginning of the meeting. If the couple decided to stay together, they would symbolically tear up the final divorce papers and get back together. The lawyer placed champagne and 4 glasses on the table. The resentment was quite strong, as Cheryl, like a common whore, had to take an STD test. She was disgusted at having to go to a clinic where she knew some of the staff to ask for the test. She knew she was clean, or at least she hoped so. Cheryl spent a lot of time doing her makeup for this meeting. She needed a new dress for the masquerade. She couldn't wait to be Marvin's wife again and realized how much she missed him. She arrived at the lawyer's office first, followed by her lawyer. Marvin arrived last and, placing a bright red envelope on the table, apologized for being late. Cheryl's heart began to beat faster. She thought he had revived the idea of a trip to Paris and that they would spend their second honeymoon there. The exchange of STD test results showed no infection. Cheryl breathed a sigh of relief. Both parties signed the final divorce decree, and then Marvin asked Cheryl if she had anything to say. She began, "It's been a long 6 months without the love of my life, but every cloud has a silver lining. These improvements are reflected in the fact that I have become a more enlightened woman, who is even more committed to her marriage than before. I would like to thank my loving and devoted husband for giving me the opportunity to spread my wings and learn to fly. Marvin, you will never regret the gift you gave me, because I will demonstrate my faithful love for you for the rest of my life." Now it was his turn, and he said, "Faith is trusting someone. All marriage vows talk about the fidelity of both spouses because without trust, there is no love." This brings us to the beginning of this divorce process and my desire for my wife and I to remain faithful to each other. Over the past 6 months, I have spent time with several women. During that time, I have not been involved with anyone. Cheryl, have you remained faithful to me? Shocked by the formality of his comments, she replied, "Yes, I have remained faithful to you." Marvin grimaced at her answer, and Cheryl noticed his reaction and became concerned. He took the red envelope and pulled out a photograph of her kissing Ted. He asked, "Have you been faithful?" She hesitated and mumbled something, then said, "It was just a kiss. It didn't mean anything. I wasn't unfaithful." He pulled out another vulgar photograph. "You call this fidelity?" She was so flustered that her lawyer advised her to remain silent. But she said, "Where did you get this photo? Were you following me? My dress accidentally rode up when I tripped and fell on a stranger." He replied sternly, "This is the most disgusting situation I've ever been in." This photo was taken by a friend of one of our sons in Dallas. Our son found out about this photo when Matt and his father were laughing about a prostitute who attacked Ted at a club. They confirmed that it was you by showing him the photo presented here. At these words, Cheryl turned pale, and tears welled up in her eyes. Marvin growled, "Imagine the pain of a son who sees his mother in a crowded club trying to pick up some guy for fun." Our son was sitting at a table across from the man who made his father a cuckold and his mother a whore. Imagine what went through his mind when he looked at that disgusting photo. And you wonder why your children don't answer your calls. He turned to his lawyer, handed him both signed copies of the order, and said, "Please file these with the court." Marvin, sex meant nothing to me. It meant nothing to Ted either. It was just physical intimacy without love, without commitment. He said sternly, "That's even more cruel, Cheryl. You think sex with Ted means nothing to you, even though you know it means everything to me. How disrespectful that is to me. That's the worst thing you could have said to me." Cheryl fell into a pool of tears, moaning and muttering. She didn't have the strength to get up and leave, even when the lawyer pulled her by the arm. She repeated, "No, no, no. I want to be your wife again. Please forgive me. I promise I'll always be faithful. Please don't do this to me. I don't want to get divorced like the other women in the clubs. Please don't push me away. Forgive me. I'll never do it again." As he left the office, he could hear her crying and sobbing as she walked to her BMW. Marvin took the rest of the day off work. He went home because he felt it was dangerous to drive or even be around people. He poured himself a large glass of whiskey, lit a cigar, and turned on the Frank Sinatra channel on Sirius Radio. The view from the terrace was quiet and peaceful, just what he needed. He looked at his turned-off cell phone and saw that Cheryl had been calling him every 5 minutes and deleted the calls. Tara and Greta had called several times, as had Robbie and Cindy. All in good time, he thought. Deep down, he knew that was how it would be. Cheryl wanted it so badly that it was inevitable. That was why she had taken all her things with her when she left 6 months ago. He wanted her to go so he could get used to life without her. Without her, the woman he had loved but lost over time. Since last summer, he had noticed her growing dissatisfaction with their marriage. Whether she had cheated on him or not, she was gone. When he spent time with Tara and Greta, they showed him more affection than Cheryl ever had. Their marriage had lasted longer than the 25 years guaranteed by their prenuptial agreement. He didn't know if it was the whiskey, the cigar, the exhaustion, the relief, or all of the above, but he lay unconscious all day and all evening. He woke up to Tara's gentle touch. She asked with a concerned look on her face, "Are you okay?" He smiled weakly and replied, "Yes, why shouldn't I be?" She laughed and said, "I see you haven't lost your sense of humor after the divorce." He replied, Everything turned out just as I thought it would 6 months ago. She left. It was nice just to sit here in silence. I had been emotionally preparing for this day since she left. Without knowing the exact details, I knew how it would end. I wasn't caught off guard. I could at least make alternative plans for the future and not just drift along for the next year. She sat down next to him, put her arms around his shoulders, and asked, "Am I in that future?" When he quickly replied, "Of course." She brought her face close to his and kissed him. Then she said, "As long as you have plans for me, I can wait. Take your time and don't rush. You can feel the last breaths of a 25-year relationship. They won't disappear quickly. I'll be there for you." Then she kissed him again and left. Cheryl was so sure that her husband would gladly take her back into his home that she agreed to move out of the apartment at the end of the 6-month lease. Now she had to find a new place to live. Since the apartment building had already been built, the owners did not offer her a discount on a new apartment. Instead, they raised the rent by 40%, which put her in a difficult position. She didn't ask for more money in the divorce because she knew Marvin would take it back. Besides, the house had been given to him by his grandparents, and the company had been passed on to Marvin by his father before they were married. The divorce papers were only needed for appearances, so that people would not think he was a cuckold. Diane Marco testified that Cheryl did not want to give up her right to have intimate relationships with other men, which forced Marvin to divorce her. The judge upheld her right to do so and approved the agreement, which was unfavorable to Cheryl. However, she was allowed to keep her teacher's pension account. Since she was fully employed and had no children, alimony was not awarded. This was not taken into account in her new budget, as she had to live in Marvin's house that week. She had to move to cheaper accommodation. Once again, it was very difficult to pay for the moving expenses and the deposit. She would have liked to have a small house, but that would have meant taking care of the garden. Her now ex-husband had done that, and she didn't want to do it. She found a small apartment in a less prestigious neighborhood that fit her budget. The thought of working evenings scared her, not because of the danger or inconvenience, but because of the humiliation she felt working as a waitress and having to serve her former friends from the country club. Now her children answer her calls, but the bond between them and their mother has been broken. It will take some time to completely restore their relationship. They both promised to visit her when they were in town. Autumn arrived. The trees turned different colors, the days grew shorter, and the nights grew cooler. Cheryl shivered and thought, "It's going to be a long, cold winter." The next morning was Saturday, and Marvin overslept. He told his Saturday golf buddies that he wouldn't be playing that day. Around 10 a.m., Greta appeared at the door. She said, "I heard it was brutal, but it's over." "Who told you that?" Greta smiled and replied, "We have the same lawyer, silly. He knows how close you and I are. Besides, I threatened to break all his golf clubs and his left arm if he didn't tell me." He laughed and hugged her. She asked, "Is it finally over?" "Yes, finally." She said, "Good. Now that you're starting to make plans for the rest of your life, there's something I want to tell you. I wanted to tell you earlier, but you were so busy and I was having such a good time with you that I just couldn't. Please sit down." He hesitated, trying to imagine what she was going to say. Greta said softly, "The women in town find you very attractive, and when the final decision is made, more and more women will notice you. As you plan your life, you will probably want to get married someday. If I am lucky enough to receive an invitation, I will have to decline because I am already married." This made him jump up from his seat. "What? When? How?" was all he could formulate in his mind. He asked, "Who is your husband and where does he live?" "My wife lives in Atlanta, and we've been married for 5 years. One of the reasons I go there so often is to see her. Marvin, I'm a lesbian, and I have been for 10 years. That doesn't change the fact that I love you as my best friend and want you to always be in my life. I can love you, but I can't marry you. As I understand it, we can continue living as we did this summer if Tara is okay with that. In fact, I would like to improve my relationship with Tara. I want her to know that I'm not trying to steal her man. If she's important to you, she's important to me. After all, we're business partners." She continued, "I was relieved and reassured by the no-sex rule you established this summer. It didn't put me in an awkward position. My wife doesn't want me to do this with you, just as you didn't want other men to do this with your wife. She doesn't like the idea of me being a cuckold. I have a good friend who just divorced his wife because she did it with another man." Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. So subscribe to my channel and watch the next video.